I didn't really have compassion for my own experience until I watched him grow. And there was something about watching him experience the things that I had experienced that made me stop and say, okay, maybe I'm not done with this stuff yet. So, yeah, I'll probably be very quiet.
This is so powerful. I mentioned earlier how impactful it was to be watching it. It deals with forgiveness, redemption, and I know a lot of times we go through things in life that sometimes we're not ready to deal with, or think people are worthy of their forgiveness. So my question to you is like, why was that important? And then to André, how did you prepare for that?
It was important because I had two sons, and I didn't want to pass off. I didn't want to pass this off to another generation, and I needed to find a way. I needed to find a way to set my sons up for success. And I was telling somebody earlier today, my sons would ask me about my relationship with my father, why I didn't call him dad, and why it was different than our relationship. And I said, I would always say, well, I'll tell you a little bit when you're older. I'll tell you when you're older. Well, my oldest is going off to college next year, so he's old enough. And so I sat down and I started writing, and this is what came out.
André, how was it for you preparing for such a role? Because you were phenomenal. Like, I don't know
I really appreciate that. Thank y'all. Well, the first thing we had to do was learn how to paint. Titus was gracious enough to invite me up to his studio in New Haven, and so we spent a bunch of time over the course of, I guess, about 3 months, like learning to paint. So that felt really important to get that as close to right as we could. And then in terms of like playing the character himself, I mean, the writing was so wonderful, first of all, so much was already clear. And I think also in a lot of ways, I feel like I've been preparing for a part like this for a very long time. I mean, as I'm sitting here, you mentioned Mama Holland, who's here, my mom, and exactly, because, we started this acting journey, 30, I don't know how many years ago, here at Birmingham Town and Gown Theater. And so from then, she's been to every play I've ever done, every movie I've ever been in. She's watched all the bad TV shows I've been in, everything. And so I feel like I've been being prepared for a long time. And it feels like it was just a perfect moment, the right kind of writing. I was at the right place in my life where I had the right stuff going on in my own life to offer to the part. And so it just sort of felt like a perfect collision.
Now, what was it for you, Titus, about André that made you think he was right for this role?
We had our first conversation, and it was very clear to me. From our first conversation, it was like we've known each other our whole lives. It was supposed to be a quick conversation that just went on and on and on, and it was clear from that we would be able to work together. But I knew his work, and there is a kind of sincerity and honesty that is in his performance, in his performances, that made it clear to me that this would be no problem for him. So there were other producers on the project that had some other ideas. I was very clear, I want André for this.
Now, André, you play like a wide range of roles. So throughout your career, how are you, I know we got a lot of actors. How do you choose roles? And are you looking for something specific, or are you just challenging yourself?
I try to challenge myself. I mean, most of the time, I know what I don't want to do. A lot of times you get sent things like that are, disrespectful or denigrating to like the culture. I don't ever want to do anything that disrespects my people. And then, I want to keep challenging myself and trying to do things that I haven't done before. Because I think, more than wanting to be like in movies or be seen or get awards and all of that stuff, for me, it's like I want to live up to every ounce of my potential. I feel like I owe it to myself and I owe it to my family and to, and to you all, to my community. So that for me is kind of the guy.
Now I'm going to ask about 2 more questions, and I'm going to open it up to the audience real quick. So Titus, you had the bomb-ass cast in this film. Like, you had movie theaters. You had the entire
pretty ridiculous.
Seriously, like, I mean, how did you, like, what role did you play in casting? Was specific people you said they have to be in it, like André, or?
It's ridiculous. Like, a first-time director should not be working with these people. It's just, I feel so blessed to be in this situation. A lot of y'all don't know this, but I'm not actually a director, I'm a painter. And so, like, all of the paintings in the film I actually made, and to my surprise, actors are artists, and so it was a lot of artist-to-artist conversation. Let's do something that we haven't seen before. Like, let's show us like they haven't shown us before. And really, André, for example, had known my work already. Angelou had known my work already. So we had great conversations. I wasn't, I would love to be like, yeah, I directed them in this way. It wasn't as much about that. Derek Singh France, one of the producers on the film, said, the most important thing for you as a director is to choose people you trust and then give them space, right? And that was my philosophy throughout. Choose people I trust. These are the people I trust. All right, I'm gonna let you do what you need to do. I'm gonna protect you. And if we need to get everybody off the set so you can do what you need to do, we're gonna get everybody off the set so you can do what you need to do. And then we got what we got.
Awesome, it was amazing. Do we have any questions in the audience?
Yes.
Where you at? Do we have a mic back there, crew? Do we have...
We got you.
Go for it.
I would listen.
I think I have a mic. Okay. So you kind of answered one of my questions, which was what was the inspiration for the film? And it sounds like it was your life. I wondered if you also sort of conglomerated the experience of your generation and people that you grew up with. And I'm also curious about what cities this was based in. Thank you so much. I'll be quiet.
So I'm from Michigan originally, but my mother is from Mississippi. We got both Michigan and Mississippi now. And so the film is really rooted in my experience growing up in Michigan. I tell people all the time, nope, that's how it was. We all burned our trash in the backyard, and my father and I would go pick up that trash and take it to the dump. So it's not really a conglomeration of other experiences. It's very much my experience. There's certain things that have been changed in order to make the narrative flow a little bit better. So the character of my mother that Angelou plays is actually a conflation of my mother and my grandmother. And that was necessary in order to be able to tell the story succinctly. But the character of my wife is very different. But other than that, this is very much my story. It wasn't about trying to make some conglomeration of something. As a painter, what I've realized is the times when I've been able to touch something universal, it's only been because I've allowed myself to be incredibly vulnerable, very specific, like honest about who I am in the world, and then other people go, oh yeah, I'm like that too, right? When I attempt to make something that's universal, you never hit it. You'll never hit it that way. You have to be honest with yourself about who you are, where you come from, your own specific subjectivity. So, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I guess.
Oh, we got a mic coming to you. 1 second. Right here.
So my question is, not struggle with this.
It's not too bad.
I mean, listen. That's a good question, man. I mean, I guess, really, I don't know the answer, to be honest with you. I guess it's a process that you continue to like refine the older you get. You know, you try things on, if it doesn't work, then you learn to let it go. I don't know that I have the perfect answer, to be honest, but it just feels like it's a process that's maybe like a lifelong process. That's my sense. What do you think, too?
Well, I answered from the perspective of the film. When I sat down to write, it only took a few pages before I realized my father is not a villain. Don't write this man as a villain. Like, he's experienced a lot. And if this is going to be real, you have to understand what he's experienced. So, he wanted me to know how to work. And the complexity of that whole narrative is that he was right. I wouldn't be up here if I didn't get my ass beat like that. Now let me tell you, I don't treat my children that way. And I know there's another way for us to do. But I know that my hustle, that grind, that thing that will not allow me to give up on myself is because of that. It's so complicated. I don't know how to answer your question because he is completely right, my father, and completely wrong at the same time. So I think part of it is recognizing that in this life, there are actually very few villains. There are very few villains. There's a reason you're going through the thing that you're going through. And so take the time to figure out the lessons you need to learn in that experience. Otherwise, God's going to take you through it again.
We got time for about 2 more questions.
Oh, wow. Great. Whoa.
Is that Mississippi?
That's Mississippi.
Right here.
You know how we do.
Mississippi, raise your hand. All right, come on.
Hey.
Yes, Mississippi proud. I have a question about the religious aspect. And as a daughter of pastors, you really hit me hard here. But working through that and seeing your mom work through that and live out that faith until the very end, and then having to reckon with that in the line of don't stop praying for me. Like we're just give me that story.
So, that Abraham and Isaac story, y'all know that story. I went to church like you did. I heard that story before. And then my son was born. And that story didn't make sense to me anymore. That story just didn't work for me anymore. I know it's supposed to be about the faithfulness of Abraham, but there's no circumstance under which you would put a knife to your son's neck, ever. And so, I believe in the faith of the women that brought me into this world, that covered me. And at the same time, I recognize there's some of that stuff that just can't be true. That doesn't work for me. There's something I'm missing. I will never disrespect the faith of my grandmother, of my mother. I will never do that. Those people are why I exist in the world. But at the same time, I have to be honest about the things that I'm challenged by. Otherwise, I'm just lying to myself, and that's not even really me.
All right, I see your hand all right there yonder. Hey,
We can't see you. It's like,
back over here. Over this side. I got to share love because y'all not going to be looking for me this weekend and trying to give me the mic and let me ask a question. No. We're coming. Look at y'all working y'all stuff out here with us on stage. I appreciate it.
All right, so,
Hold on. I see you. You got one up here? Okay, I got you next.
depth in this film. I'm wondering, it's sort of a twofold question. What was it like portraying someone else's story when you were working with them? And while you were creating this character, did it stir something from you and from your own history that you were able to bring to it?
Yeah, thank you for the question. One of the things early on that we talked about is that the character I'm playing is Terrell. It's not Titus. Obviously, I understood that a lot of it was pulled from his life, and there are a lot of very personal things in there. And we talked about and around some of those things. But I think it was really wise of us to decide that we were like speaking about the character on the page. That allowed me anyway, a certain freedom, not to feel like I had to be mimicking Titus or, replicating anything in particular. So that was one thing. I think into your other part, in terms of the emotional part, it was definitely very, very challenging. One of the hardest things I've done, maybe the hardest thing I've done, partly because of the fact that it really demands complete honesty and vulnerability, and it's kind of unrelenting. He's in pretty much every scene, most of the scenes, and it's hard to do this job well if you're not going to put your own heart into it. And so the trick for me, or the challenge is how to put my real heart, my real feelings into the character, right? A lot of people think about acting as like, oh, I'm just pretending to be somebody else, but you're not. You're actually putting yourself into that place every single day, and your body doesn't know that you're pretending, right? So inevitably, those feelings, that trauma, the sadness, the grief, all of it gets trapped in your body. And so for me, it was about allowing myself to go fully into it emotionally and be honest and vulnerable, but then also find ways at the end of the day to let it go and remind myself that that's not me. But then you just do it all over again the next day. That's why I think actors are incredible and deserve so much respect. Yeah. And I was gonna say, just real quick, the last thing I learned about the party was somebody's from, you said Michigan, and somebody said they're from Michigan? Yeah! Oh, well, yeah. What up, though? Yeah, I just wanted to say, roll tide.
more kind of vivid and bright colors. What went into that? I kind of always feel like the way you loved your mom so much, but kept very earth tones and very quiet and very calm colors versus the other ones. It was just interesting to me. I'm sorry, I'm rambling now. But just another conscious thought.
Yeah, no, it was very conscious. So there's a line in the film where Terrell says, "Is it just me, or are bad memories more saturated than good ones?" And for me, that is my experience. My memories, particularly the most difficult memories, are super saturated in my mind. And so the present is, regular color. And so that's kind of the reason why that exists that way. Those paintings were made before we even started the film. They're very, I think there are 2 paintings that were made after the film was done, but for the most part, all those paintings were made before. And that's pretty much why. That's just my approach.
All right, last audience. Can you yell it?
I wanted to ask about your journey with your mother's death and your father's situation. I lost my mom in 2018, and she very much hated my dad. She died. In contrast to your mom, right? And so I grieve
So let me be clear, my mother is alive. It's my grandmother who passed. And it was both of them that were insistent that I needed to have this reconciliation with my father. I have a very complicated relationship with my father. You know, part of this movie was about not creating some kind of fairy tale ending. It doesn't, you know, I watch movies and see these situations and be like, that ain't real life. It's way more complicated than that. You know, there are too many people in this room to put my father's business out like that. But what I will say is, it is still very complicated between us. We are trying. But part of what I hope that this film offers is a variation on forgiveness that doesn't require victims to keep putting themselves in the place of harm. You know what I mean? I can forgive you, but that does not mean you need to go fishing next week, right? And the way I was brought up, that's not real forgiveness, right? But what I'm saying is, as a father, in order for me to make sure that my sons were safe, I had to make some decisions about the relationship that they were going to have. You can forgive and still keep your distance.
There is no better way to end this conversation